Okay, this is episode 31 of OverSight. And here's the thing, Monte. We have actually turned things around. Well, normally when people fall into a rut, bad habits set in, people get money, it changes them, the fame hits them. It becomes like, when like a rapper's only putting out an album every 4 years because he's living in that mansion, he doesn't have the same hunger. Well, I've often joked with you early in this series that like we were putting an episode out about once every 3 months or something ridiculous like that. And then there was a point where I did say, should we go really hard and put them out? And you were like, nah, fuck it, the Overwatch League doesn't start for 3 months anyway. So we did have about 5 episodes in 2 years. No, you're right. It's true. There wasn't much to talk about. But believe it or not, I actually noticed this the other day, Monty, when I was looking for the number of the show I do in League of Legends now called Narrative Wake. And Narrative Wake is only on like episode 34 or something. And we're on 31 already on this. That's not bad, right?
No, it's not, but you'll catch up because we'll stop this episode, or we'll stop this show during the off season, probably. I mean, maybe we do like a World Cup show here or there, but I mean, without Overwatch League, I'm sure Narrative Wake will have a chance to catch up because League of Legends runs for like 11 months of the year.
Yes. But anyway, we've gotten back on track. That's what matters.
That's right. Back on the wagon. So, and speaking of being back on the wagon, we have a Dallas Fuel player.
Okay. Agilities, your camera just went off, mate. Oh, there we go. It's back. Never mind.
It's back.
It came back. Right. Okay, so here's the thing. Our guests for this episode are famed DPS player and underrated Winston player, Taimou, of the Dallas Fuel, who I'm going to go ahead and give everyone a spoiler already. I did, unbeknownst to Monte, do an interview with Taimou just the other day, but then I didn't coordinate with Monte, so Monte then invited him as a guest. So I'm going to give everyone a spoiler. I won't be asking Taimou any questions I asked in that interview. Worse than that, I will actively subvert and sabotage Monte from asking any of the questions because I get 100% of the ad revenue from the videos on my channel, whereas I have to share this one with Monte. So you can ask him anything you want except all the stuff I thought was really interesting. So outside of that domain, you're fine. Just ask whatever you want. Yeah.
Great.
And then our other guest, also a DPS player, hasn't yet decided to flex onto Winston. I mean, then again,
not yet.
His Winston hasn't just been, temporarily banned from the Overwatch League about 3 times, so hasn't had any reason to. It is Agilities, DPS player of the Los Angeles Valiant.
Hello.
Right, so I'm getting a hydration vibe here, but I'm going to ignore that. I'm going to push through. We're going to work our way into things here. We're going to.
From me?
No, of course not. So here's the thing, Taimou. If you're on this show, people are going to want to know something about the Dallas Fuel, but it is a topic that's been talked to death. And you've said a lot of great things on interviews that are forthcoming. So what I mainly want to know about is the current Dallas Fuel. Dallas Fuel right now. Who is Dallas Fuel right now?
We are an up-and-coming team that's trying to find themselves again. And so far we've been doing pretty well, yeah.
This sounds like some sort of buildings roman for an esport team.
Yeah, it does. I don't know what else to say, mate.
Well, here's one thing you could tell us about. So, ever since the team became an Overwatch team, obviously you have flirted with using Seagal in a bunch of different roles and a bunch of different heroes, but it never really stuck before. In theory, it seems to have found his role now, right?
Yes, he has. I think Seagal being able to play Diva in this meta, like no other team can really do this, where you have your DPS player be able to flex onto a top-tier Diva, and since Brigitta is such a massive force in this current meta, it really helps us so much more than that. Like the other teams are struggling right now because they have to do awkward swaps with their DPS into Brigitta, but we can just do it. Like we can put Mickey on it, and then Seagal goes to Diva. So it just helps us so much.
What have you thought of the Seagal experiment, Monte? Seemed pretty good in this match they just played now against Philly, right?
He's actually statistically been one of the best divas in the league, so he's doing very well on the diva overall. And I've talked a lot about how I don't understand how the Dallas Fuel / Envy keeps getting accidental divas and then improving, because you didn't mean to have Mickey in the first place, and yet you were able to win Apex. And now you didn't actually intend for the meta to work this way. You just accidentally trained Seagal to be a diva player, and then now he can be a diva player and a DPS player at the same time, right? That's you guys have gotten shockingly lucky at times, but it definitely is working out, and I think it's interesting. I also think, however, that we look at your win versus Philadelphia yesterday, which you guys obviously played, you played well in. You personally played great. But I do have to wonder how many times teams are going to actively run dive into you while Mickey is so good at Brigitta, because in a way, teams are intentionally losing to you, which I find fascinating. Like, you are having the benefit of teams running strategies that you counter actively into you, which I find interesting. Why do you think Philadelphia was doing that?
It's because Philly, like many other teams in the middle, basically every other team than New York, they have this thing where they're like, when they have something that works, right? And even if they think that, oh, well, this might not be the play, but this is what works for us. It's not like we should play the meta, right? But they just think that because this works, it's probably going to work against a lower team, right? Or a worse team, as you could say. And then they just keep running it. Like you could see Philly playing them. Like, we completely predicted them in Kings Row to play Reinhardt, Zarya, Roadhog, Hanzo, and we counter-stratted it. But we just failed doing a counter strat. But we completely knew what they're doing. They never deviate from what they do, so it's very easy to play against them too. Kids, I got food. Thanks to my girlfriend.
Okay, Monte, explain a bit more what you meant there, because first of all, when you say teams are intentionally losing to you, I mean, you're definitely not talking about match fixing. You presumably mean that their choice of strategy plays into Dallas Fuel's hand in theory. Now, did people know this would work from Dallas Fuel, or do you think that's why people were thinking, it doesn't matter if we do what seemingly would be counted?
I think people are just a lot of teams that are still used to playing dive, because remember, up until this patch, when I say dive, I mean Genji, Tracer, Winston, Diva. Yes. This was the default strategy for the last year and a half in Overwatch, that you could run on any map in any situation, and you could always sort of get away with it.
And against the Dallas Fuel.
And against the Dallas Fuel, who were
they could never run it against you. So, yeah. It was like holding your little cousin away with your arm. You can punch him, but he can't punch you.
That's true. Because like we could never run dive. We never had the ability to do it, and now that we got really lucky with the meta, and also by Seagal being able to play Diva. But I think on top of that, it's also our ability to get into a new meta fast, and other teams, because they're so stuck in the dive, they're thinking that we should just be able to play dive anyway, right? They think it's the best comp, but they just fail to adapt to Brigitta.
Yes, I mean, to be fair, you've gotten so unlucky in the past. You needed a break eventually.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like that. Maybe it's like that Infinity War thing. Like, in order to get the meta that would suit you, you had to give up something that you loved. So first of all, you gave up Seagal. We all not Seagal. You gave up QXC first of all. XQC. I always get that one wrong. XQC. You gave up him, and then also you had to give up Pepe, your beloved emote. But you got something great in return.
Well, they also had to throw Kai off a cliff, right?
Exactly. Yeah, later, Kyle.
Yeah.
But to go back, so for example, on Hanamura yesterday, Dallas is defending on Hanamura, and Philly comes in with the double sniper attack, which should work against what they have, or they could just switch to playing Junkrat on attack, which I think more teams are going to start to do versus Dallas. But they're not actually able to deal with you, Taimou. In fact, I don't know why two snipers can't deal with you, but you were absolutely owning that sniper battle. So what do? They switch into dive, which you guys were countering because you
Yes.
already had the Brigitta. So I don't even understand why they're making this switch to objectively a worse composition against what you guys were running. That's what I'm talking about.
I think the reason they're running double sniper is like they think that it counters Reinhardt, like Reinhardt, Brigitta, Diva, but it actually doesn't, because like you have, especially in maps that are so clumped, like the choke is so clumped up, because you can't put like consistent damage on the Reinhardt. He's just shielding right like there all the time, and I'm behind the shield, and our supports are having free heals on your Diva, who's bullying the window and the top. So your snipers have to shoot or try to get a lucky pick by jumping, and if they don't get that like lucky pick, so what can they really do? Nothing, right? And like in most maps, like in King's Row, for example, you have an Orisa, but you can still play double sniper against it because there's so many flank positions. The point is so open, right? But on Hanamura, you can't.
Yeah. And we've seen the Hanamura double sniper attack fail, not only with what you've run, but also a lot of teams have been running Orisa Roadhog on defense. And it's really good at that because you can always basically be in halt hook range for the snipers, because there's not a long sight line. You like have to walk into the doorway.
Yes.
What do you think on this topic then, Agilities? This running double sniper and the way that Fuel's playing at the moment?
I think Fuel's playing really good. Like, I think this strat against double sniper is pretty good, because the only way we've come up to counter double sniper is with double sniper ourselves. Like, we haven't really found a counter other than that. So yeah, on King's Row, like we kind of struggle in like the escort maps, but I think we're good on like 2CP and Koth because we have our, like I can play Pharah, and then we have Suna and Brigitta and yeah, shit like that. But Hanamura, we're really good right now because we have the strong Orisa Hog with bait and space. And then yeah, like usually we just play double sniper to counter double sniper. Like we don't have any other set strategies for that. So yeah, we gotta come up with some stuff.
Okay. So is this going to be the dominant meta going forwards then?
No, probably not. Anyway, you can go, Julius.
No, I don't think it's going to be like dominant meta. Like I think people are going to figure out how to counter stuff pretty fast. Like obviously Overwatch Purge is like really smart and they have like a lot of staff helping them. So I think that a lot of comps are going to be like figured out how to run and stuff, and there's going to be like pretty or a lot of diversity, I guess.
I personally think that the meta will change drastically in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Like right now, it's like everybody's figuring out what's good, and some people are stuck on their old ways. But if their coaches are doing like a decent job, I think people will see a lot more difference in the meta.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
So one of the things that's going to be coming up is like a possible patch for the playoffs. I know this is looking into the future for like the season playoffs. But do you think it's also going to help? Because Brigitta seems to be in a pretty good spot right now, and obviously Hanzo on live is pretty overpowered. So Brigitta's getting nerfed, which I think is probably a good thing. You down to 100 armor, I think is much more appropriate, and will probably see Hanzo nerfs as well. Do you think, as far as the meta goes, because you guys have been playing for so long, you say we're in a good spot right now, which I agree, we're seeing a lot of different compositions. Do you think we'll be even in a better spot once like the nerfed Hanzo, so not current live Hanzo, but the damage reduced Hanzo comes in?
I think so. I think it'll be more entertaining too, because like even though the new Hanzo is like pretty busted, like I find them fun to watch because like I mean seeing pros get really good at their heroes can be really fun. So yeah, I think the nerfed Hanzo will be good and it will provide more diversity in the meta as well, because Brigitte won't be run as much, and then Hanzo will be run more, and then there'll be more like creative comps with that. But yeah, I think it's gonna be a good stage for playoff for like patch wise.
What has been the most significant like game-changing element then of everyone having to play Brigitte then?
For us, it was figuring out how to use her. Like we didn't know who was gonna play her, so like at first we tried Space, and then we tried Soon, and now it's like literally just me playing it like 99% of the time.
Okay.
So I wasn't prepared for that, you know, because like at first I thought it was only going to be Soon or Space. So I was practicing like Widow and practicing other shit. So yeah, as soon as I found out how to play Brigitte, I started playing in ranked and stuff. And she's not like the hardest hero to pick up on, so I seemed to play her a little bit. But yeah, at first like we had no idea who was going to play her. That was like the biggest struggle.
Has it actually been like that for the other teams? Monte, Taimou, you can jump in as well. Has it been somewhat like different for each team as to which person picks it up? Because it's not like specifically one role always. It's not just the flex player who always plays it.
I think it's like really important for your flex, both DPS to know how to play it, and then also your flex DPS or your flex tank to know how to play it. Because like with this meta, you need to make a lot of switches like all the time. So having everyone knowing how to play that is like really good.
Okay.
I personally feel like there's I think almost every single player in the team should be able to play her because, in my opinion, she's not that hard to pick up. She's like, you just need to know where to be at right times. She's like a game sense hero, like D.Va is, but D.Va obviously is much harder in my opinion. But like, if you play Brigitta, you need to play her. You need to play her a lot in scrims to understand the hero, even though it's not hard mechanically. Mechanically, she's fucking garbage easy. Like any idiot could play that character, but like her playing her well in a team environment requires a lot of time.
I think it's really interesting to see how the teams are adapting Brigitta because you guys are saying that you need multiple players to play her, but I think every team is just starting to realize this now because obviously, we only had a week. You guys only had a week to practice with the new patch with Brigitta after the last stage ended to sort of get used to her. So there wasn't a lot of time to pick up for multiple players, I think. So a lot of teams started in different capacities. Like, you Agilities, you're playing on your team, but then it's Mickey who's the flex tank who's playing Brigitta on the Dallas Fuel. It's Nevix who's playing on San Francisco. It's Sabilby who's playing it over and Prophet who are like playing it on New York and London. So at first, at least, there was a lot of had designated one player and it was either a DPS or the flex tank. And I think now teams are starting to expand their number of Brigitta players to fit different situations. I do want to go back to what Agility was saying though about the a number of strategies you have to have and the amount of flexibility you have to have in this current meta. Because for me, I personally really love this about this meta, and it's one of the most exciting things about Overwatch is watching teams change their team compositions, look for counters to each other, decide when is the best time to change those compositions. Do you feel like, well, I mean, I think factually we're seeing many more varieties of compositions right now. And some teams are struggling with that. Has this been a major change for either of you guys? Because having decisiveness in game without your coaches being there about what you're going to switch to is more important now than it's ever been before.
Yeah, I agree with that because like this is the only meta where you've literally had to wait and spawn before the game starts to change your comp. Like on Gibraltar, like we literally have two players, like me and Zune, wait and spawn to see what they're running, and then we come out with counter picks. Like that's never happened at Overwatch before, so it's obviously a big adjustment for us. But we have Fate and Custa, at least for us on Valiant. Like they're very smart people, and they basically just tell us what to switch to when they pick it right. So yeah, that's very good to have on a team, and I feel like you need to have like a main shot caller who's very smart and knowledgeable when it comes to the game to basically just tell you when you need to swap and like what to do against what they're running. It's very important.
Okay. Who do you think is the best Brigitte player so far in the league?
I think Mickey. Honestly, Mickey's been popping off on the hero.
He needed something to play now, since he's still trying to play a hero that he'd have to go back in a time machine to play.
Yeah, it's true.
Fair enough.
And he's been popping up on breaks, so it's good for him.
Okay. Right, here's how you know that the world has changed, Monte, is that when you were describing to me like which players we could get, and you got these ones, you said something along the lines of like, oh, obviously we can't ask any Boston players because obviously the start to the season has been so terrible for the Boston team, despite how fabulous the last stage was. Now, since both of your teams played Boston this week, you would be the ideal people to give us a sense. Like, what is Boston in stage 4 like versus Boston in stage 3?
I don't know what Taimou thinks, but personally I think that they relied a lot on Striker and like Striker playing on Tracer and basically just popping up and killing everyone. And then once they can really do that, because Brig was released and she's like the hardest counter to Tracer that's ever been a thing. So like they're struggling a lot right now to find like a new place for Striker, and like also they're such a dive heavy team before, even when they weren't just relying on Striker and Tracer. So I think they just need to adjust to a lot of things, and they don't really have like the two most flexible DPSs in the world. So yeah.
I'm gonna go on a little bit of a rant here. So I think one of the things One of the things that I was frustrated with when Boston was going on that undefeated run last stage was how close many of their matches were. Mm-hmm. And to build off of what Agilities is saying, this is a team that could have been 7-3 or 6-4 very easily had the chips fallen slightly differently due to their number of game fives. And when Agilities talks here about Striker, and we look at how impactful his performance was on this team, and you go back, if you were to go back and watch, say, their match, Boston's match last stage versus London, where Striker absolutely had to go crazy god mode on Oasis just to win them that series. And then you think about the Brigitta counter to Tracer during this stage and after Brigitta's released, so I guess forever now, basically, unless they drastically change Brigitta as a hero, which I appreciate because it makes Tracer less dominant in this game, or at least makes, it's not like we're not going to see Tracer still, but it does make it so that there's a better option. But Striker can't just put his team on his back anymore and brutally hard carry them to success. So I think that's part of what's going on at Boston, but it doesn't explain everything. And I think that when you think about Boston right now, they were a good team last stage, legitimately. Were they? I think they got a little bit lucky to go 10-0, but they were still, I think, the second best team pretty definitively last stage. And I don't believe that it's only the meta change that is hurting them right now. Obviously, they lost their coach, their main coach, which we thought, given that they had released him, we were like, oh, well, he must have not been that important. Yet San Francisco looks a hell of a lot better with him there in terms of their strategies and their teamwork. Boston looks a whole lot worse, and Boston was a dive emphasis team, and now they have to make a switch, and they have to make a switch to a new strategy without their head coach. But also, like, I don't think it explains this level of drop-off. You have to combine multiple things to explain this level of drop-off. So I think it's not only the meta change and their coach loss and their players aren't really well suited to this meta because they were reliant on Striker having Tracer. I think there's got to be internal problems within that team too. There's got to be something really weird going on because they are nowhere near where they were at the end of last stage. So something happened as a result of one of all of these things that I think has really damaged their team morale or damaged them internally.
Well, the fun thing is, because obviously they went undefeated in stage 3 and went 10-0, right? I imagine that is sort of like the rough results that get passed along to like the higher ups, Because did you see that video where Robert Kraft was top meeting all the players from the
showing them like the Super Bowl trophies?
They were all in the room where all the Super Bowl NFL trophies are, and then Robert Kraft says to Huck in the group, he goes something like, we got a history here of winning, so I need you to bring me back some trophies. Like he emphasizes trophies, and I just wanted to go like, oh, that's just cute as hell, isn't it? Don't tell him. Don't anyone tell him. Yeah, we'll see if they win trophies. Yeah, I'm pulling for you, mate. That's unfortunate, isn't it? Well, 0-4 start to the season. Unfortunately, it turns out you are the Cleveland Browns.
So we thought maybe they were in Boston, so that was affecting their ability to adapt to the meta.
Okay,
right? Because they were one of the teams that went away during the break, but. I mean, you went away too, right? You were in Dallas during the break, right, Taimou?
Yeah, we didn't play, like, for the whole break of the stage, we didn't play a single scrim because 1, we didn't get scrims, and 2, everybody was on vacation.
What do you mean you didn't get scrims? As in you just didn't arrange them?
No, we tried.
And people are like, and people thought your team was too bad to play.
I mean, we had this, like, also because we've been playing so badly, and we've been getting like pretty much shat on. So like even when we tried to book scrims like a month prior, right? Yeah. We still mostly play Dragons all the time or Academy teams.
It's just you and Shanghai Dragons in an eternal death match of sorrow and misery. No, to be fair though, if you're just loading up a game and you're like, right, scrim block, who are we playing first? Dallas Field. Okay, try and keep an open mind. Right, why the fuck Seagal playing that one? And what? Taimou's on Winston Dyke. They're dicking around. Kick him out. Get him out the scrim group. If you're not going to play seriously, we're not going to book scrims. No. Honestly, we really want to try this. Help, please. Well,
I do.
And also, they just keep messaging Kai now, so Houston Outlaws is getting double booked.
I do think that it's understandable that given your problems and what Thorin's saying with your roster, that it does make sense that teams would not be too hyped to scrim you. But I imagine that has changed now. But also,
it is hilarious just imagining them playing Shanghai Dragons like 7 times in a row.
I mean, I think we had 1 week where we had Optic Academy and then 6 scrims of Dragons and nothing else.
Okay. So basically, you were just playing the Overwatch version of How to Train Your Dragons.
That's a good one.
At least they were improving. So fair enough. They were getting some decent practice in, mate. They can't get anyone else to practice.
Meanwhile,
that's even more depressing. What the fuck?
Meanwhile, Hastro's just sitting there being like, yeah, we don't need an academy team for the Dallas Fuel. Good thing we didn't get a contenders team that we could reliably practice against.
I don't know. I think pretty much only New York is doing well. Like their academy team is good enough where their main team actually like scrims them. I don't think other teams do that.
You realize that you just said you couldn't get any scrims at all. So ergo, even having a bad academy team would be better.
Yeah, sure. Of course.
He also implied, Monte, that academy teams don't scrim Overwatch teams, but he just said that Optic Academy scrims the Dallas Fuel.
It was
so
one
bad.
One
Okay, I understand. It was just one scrim. Sad state of affairs for everyone, really. I don't know who. I feel bad for everyone involved in that equation, quite frankly. Okay, so anyway, the point we were getting to was you didn't get much playtime either, but obviously your team hasn't struggled. You come out the gate looking pretty good. So what happened during that week where you played that Shanghai Dragons, 1 game against Optic Academy and then nothing?
I think, nothing really happened before the med. Like, we knew what patch we were playing on, and then it's me, Mickey, Seagal, and probably other people too, where everybody's like grinding Brigitta like non-stop, like play that character, she's overpowered as fuck, and everybody's playing it. And then we had AKM play her too, and then we were like, why would we have AKM play Brigitta when Mickey has already like played it? Like he's been non-stop grinding that character, and he's already pretty good at it. And also, given that we can run Seagal and Mickey at the same time is like a huge buff to our team, right? So we wanted to switch that, and we did, and it's like been working out, right?
And presumably people scream you now.
Yeah, they do.
Okay. The respect's back, good.
Like this week's and next week's scrims are still mostly Dragons because we booked them so much ahead.
Here's the thing. I don't want to sound harsh here, Taimou, but I might be an arsehole and just cancel those scrims personally. I don't want to be one of those people who seems like, a gold digger. Like I just move up to the next man when I get the chance, but I'd probably cancel those ones and get some better scrims.
I don't know what Dragons is doing, but I feel like when they run their main roster, like, sure, they're like Dia and Otto are playing well, and their tanks aren't that bad either. But it's like it feels like they're switching their players around every scrim block. It's so
they're doing the London shuffle, as we'll call it.
It's so odd, dude. It's so hard to watch. It's so hard to play against them too. I mean, they still do that. They do the exact same strats, the exact same hero picks, but with different players.
Yes, the London Shuffle. Classic.
It's like, what the fuck am I watching, dude? Who am I playing against?
Right. Obviously, people might get offended if you're given, but do they tend to lose most of the scrims?
Yeah, they do.
I mean, so the thing about it is, like, let's talk about Shanghai for a moment, because you said, if we look at Dia and Otto, they're actually pretty good players. So are their tanks, like, their tank lines, Fearless, Keguri. These are decent players. It's really their support line that is very bad. And I'm not sure. So we thought, because a lot of people who knew the Chinese scene thought that having Sky, who used to be known as Zhu Fanjun, who is one of the best flex supports in China coming in, would be a really big help for this Shanghai Dragons team. And yet we don't even see him playing very much right now, which I think is strange.
Does he play in the scrims?
No, not from what I've seen at least.
No.
Okay.
So I don't get this at all. Maybe it could have potentially, without knowing anything, it could be an attitude issue or something like that. But I think him coming in he was one of the miraculous youngster players that was supposed to be one of the better players in China, and they were trying to address a need at a support position, but they sort of stuck with 5 King altering and free feel, and that I think is really holding them back.
Yeah,
so
I'm very confused myself.
And then, like Taimou was saying, they will randomly switch them in. It was like watching London play, where you have all these off tanks and supports, and they play literally the same heroes as the other off tanks and supports. So you're not bringing in a specialist; you are just randomly switching them. And I think that really hurts their synergy. And considering their tank line and their supports literally don't speak the same language right now, I think it's very hard for them to gain synergy because they can't just communicate on the fly. They have to just do it by practicing and by knowing each other's styles and having that instinct. So I don't
You know what
get
I've realised? Here's what's sick. If esports ever gets big enough, right? And let's just imagine, for the sake of this hypothetical, that when esports gets, in 20, 30 years, so like exponential growth, like the most money possible, whole countries are putting like their budgets into things for the Olympic team and stuff. Obviously, China is going to have a massive amount of money and interest in the sport, right? So let's imagine the Overwatch League has got up with it, like rising tide carries all ships. So Overwatch League's gotten massive. The actual end game for China should be to get like Korean children who've learned just enough Korean culture that they have the advantage that like they practice a lot as young as possible over to China, probably like genetically inject them with some sort of nanotechnology that makes them no Chinese, so they instantly can be integrated into the team, but they understand the hierarchy of a Chinese team, and that's when you'll have the ultimate Chinese squads. So all I'm saying is season 20 of the Overwatch League, Shanghai Dragons going to beat that ass. There you go. I'm giving everyone hope, some optimism, finally.
It's okay. The Chinese teams are so rich, they'll just buy all the good players anyway. So it's never out of the question. They tried to do that in League of Legends, but they were stopped by only being able to buy 2 Korean players. But there's nothing stopping them from doing that in
No import
Overwatch
limit.
League. So
Yeah. They just need to pull a jack and realize there's no import limit, son. No import limit whatsoever.
So here's a question for you guys: Are the we'll change our verb. Are the Shanghai Dragons the worst team currently right now in the Overwatch League?
Definitely.
Because they've gotten better.
They've gotten better, but they're still the worst team.
They're like, I mean, they run the same strats. They play different players. They have zero synergy. It feels like their tank line is feeding because they're like not like they don't have any strats. It feels like they're just running in, right? It's like it's so hard to watch. It's so hard to play because you kind of feel bad for playing against them, right?
I feel bad for casting them because I have 6 of their matches this stage, and I had to cast their New York game yesterday, and I was literally watching New York beat them with dive while they were playing Brigitta and just absolutely destroy them, and I was like, this is painful to me, and I have to sit here and talk about it.
It's also like it's not like their DPS players are that. Like, they're good, but they're not amazing. Because, like, if you, for example, you look at Dia, all he literally does is, like, he sees you somewhere, like, okay, he plays Widow, right? You know exactly where he's going to be. Like, almost 95% of the time, you know where he's going to be because he plays so telegraphed. It's so odd, dude. Like, I just simply can't comprehend it.
Now, I asked this question because the Florida Mayhem look like they have regressed massively in the last few weeks. They look really bad. Regressed, yes. Like, they look like they're getting worse. So
Taimou just shocked.
I don't know. I was playing Hearthstone.
Fair enough.
I got top deck. That's why I was like,
Okay.
Taimou's top deck phase. So what do you guys think about Florida right now in comparison to the Shanghai Dragons? Because to me, like, it's amazing to me that they can't win maps when Saya player is popping off in the way he does. Like, he can literally kill 3 or 4 people and they'll still lose a final push.
yeah. I don't know what to say about that because like I feel like Saya like Korea in Korea there's a saying where like Saya is like the most insane. Like even back when I was in Korea, like he was not as good as I was back then mechanically, but then he just grinded. He apparently grinds like 12 hours of DM every day. He's fucking ridiculous, right? But it seems like they're not trying to play around him. Like they're not trying to make strats. They're like walking in. Okay, Saya, you go there. You just like put your like brain off and try to like kill as many people as you can. Like they're not trying to. It looks like they're not trying to win games. That's the thing. They look like they're just hoping that miraculously they're gonna win a game, but we're not even trying, right? That's what they look like to me.
So you think that there's a motivation issue, or they've just sort of given up?
I think they've given up hard.
Mentally broken.
So in that state, if they are mentally broken, and I don't think the Shanghai Dragons are mentally broken because they keep trying and they've
they were never mentally complete to begin with. They just always lived it. You know, Florida merely adopted the darkness, Monte.
So in a world where not this coming week, but the week after, Shanghai Dragons plays Florida, who is going to win?
I still think Florida is gonna win because like Shanghai, they're really good on maps. Like I think they're really good on Kings Row, because they have the double sniper and like Dia and Ado are good. They could kind of just carry, but I still think like Florida is just a bit above them, and then Florida would have to massively throw in order for Shanghai to win. I don't think Shanghai's gonna win a game this stage as much as I want them to.
I think the only way Shanghai's gonna win is when. Because Dia and Saya player, they both play the exact same way. They both try to like constantly jump on your Widow's face. They try to take the 1v1 and they hope they win. That's that's how they play, right? And there's no other way. And I feel like if Dia somehow wins the 1v1 against Saya player consistently, they can win. But if not, it's over. There's no way.
Yeah. And it's going to be very hard for Dia to win against Saya player because he's like...
Yeah, it is.
He's just insane. Yeah.
It is pretty insane that Florida's only won one map so far this season, this stage though. One map.
That's pretty bad. And they're trying to swap out Saya player too, which makes no sense because he's literally just carrying them.
Well, Logix has been good as well. That's the problem.
Logix is good for sure.
I think the thing that is hard for them is like they're also like behind in the meta where I think Twig was playing Brigitta for them, and then they were running some really odd comps with Soldier, Brigitta. It's like, why are you running this shit? This is like 2016, bro.
And that's coming from Dallas Fuel.
Yeah.
So, but you understand. Actually, you know what's interesting is I actually had our stats guy look up the soldier usage on Florida because I was also interested in why they were running so much soldier and how much more soldier they were running. And I found out that they were running about soldier in about 10% of their compositions, but they were running soldier at times when most teams run McCree. So like third point defense of Dorado. And sort of mid-range maps. And you know what I think? I was talking about this and with the other casters, and I think we all agreed that the reason why they must be doing this, as opposed to running McCree. So why is Saya player running Soldier? And I honestly believe the answer is that he must not have any confidence in his supports to heal him and so he's just healing himself. That's the only reason I can see why they would be using Soldier instead of McCree in these scenarios. And I don't think that's surprising considering the weakest part of this Florida Mayhem roster is their support line, like Shanghai.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's the main problem in Florida too, because they got Awesome Guy who's like a pretty good tank, and they have Manathin who's always been consistently good. And then I think their DPS, like no matter who they put in, are gonna perform consistently. So I think that both Shanghai and Florida supports are not looking so good right now.
Yeah, I'm surprised they've actually made it this long in the league as they have with these support players, because Zupe is not looking great, and part of Florida's problems is they also don't do a very good job of protecting their supports. But I watch Zebasai's like Valkyries, and he Valks so early and he telegraphs his ult so hard that other teams just disengage from Florida easily and wait for it to be over, and then they just re-engage. Like, he will pop it before anybody else on his team even goes in. So every time Florida attacks, I feel like it's this very slow step-by-step process where it's like, oh, Zebasai pops Valkyrie. Wait several seconds. Then they go in. Okay, well, the other team obviously knows what you're doing.
Yeah, I think that's just a sign of their communication not being the greatest too. Because like he's probably telling him to go in, and he's trying to like set that up, but it's probably hard for them to communicate. I guess I guess. Yeah.
I think it comes down to the motivation and being able to trust your team after losing so long. Like we had a massive problem for good two and a half stages where people were like, nobody would know, like, if like nobody would be able to trust each other because like we're trying so hard to win, but nobody trusts each other to win, so everybody's playing solo, and that's pretty much what's happening right there.
So one of the things we haven't brought up yet is that you have a new coach now. So you brought in Arrow, a coach that really did have a very good reputation in the Overwatch professional community. A lot of people said, hey, this guy actually is a very good coach. He was coming in from Fusion University. He was not on an Overwatch League team before. So what has your experience been with Arrow since the start? Because did you guys sort of have a hard reset? Was the trip to Dallas helpful? Was like the break helpful in going to Dallas and seeing your fans? What do you think contributed to a better mentality that you have going on right now?
I think going to Dallas was a big help. I think it improved everybody's mindset drastically, where nobody really thought about playing the game for a week. We're like meeting fans, like it shows us how much the fans still care, no matter how much like we suck, and how much happier they're gonna be after we win, right? And that kind of it gives you strength in a way. And then Arrow, when he comes in, he came right after the Dallas trip ended, so he came like one day before Shanghai game, I think, if I'm not wrong, right? And then for the Shanghai game, he was just getting the feel for the team. So the team pretty much went on its own against the Shanghai game still. For the Gladiators game, we had massive improvements in communication, teamwork, who's calling what, and just the overall like feel for the game. Sure, like I was still playing bad, so we lost the Gladiators and we didn't have the experience to run Brigitta enough yet. But for this week, though, we knew Boston literally sucks dick right now. They're really bad, right? So we go in, we stomp them, blah, blah, blah. And then for the Philly match, we knew that Philly is very good, but they're really stuck in their ways. And Arrow working with Peak and Vol'jin, they're really good at counter-stratting, and it helps us so immensely. Like, we never really... Like, we were like the other teams. We were like, we don't give a shit what the other team plays. We play our own thing. We outplay them. We win, right? We didn't care about the meta. But now we're like, we're the ones to adapt, and it helps us so much.
By the way, just as a quick note, I noticed something, Monte. I should have brought this up earlier because this might explain a lot when everyone was going into the Shanghai Dragons part. There's actually a tweet that's on Reddit where Girardi said that the team didn't have the interpreter before the last interpreter left before stage 3, so they prepared for all their games in stage 4 without a translator, and that the new interpreter's coming today. So all those scrims, all the games, they just had no communication.
That's really odd because they had just hired a guy to help run the team who was a former like Blizzard employee.
Said due to sickness though, so maybe.
Okay, well I hope he's okay. But yeah, he was a guy who was trilingual. He was fluent in English, Korean, and Chinese. So I thought that was he was a great hire.
Does say due to sickness though, so maybe what happened is he was working away in the Shanghai Dragons. It was a fucking nightmare. He was like, right, pull an effect. Oh, I'm really ill. I have to go back to Korea now. And they're like, oh, let's get a new person in, bring him over. Well, the position is very challenging.
So what is going on with Effect, Taimou? Where in the world is Carmen Effect?
Well, we know where he is. We just don't know why he's there. That's the real reason, right?
Why in the world Carmen Effect?
It's because he just has too bad of a mental state. He needs time. He's not coming back for stage 4. Definitely not.
Which, to be fair, there's not really a point. You guys aren't.
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
so.
There's no point, right? And then I feel like effects problems. Like I don't know about them. Nobody really knows because he doesn't really talk about his personal life to anybody, right? So I feel like he just like needs his personal space and his time, and he needs to get some like I think he's getting counseling, so that's very good for him, and I think it's gonna help him a lot. But he should keep doing it for a good few months, and when he feels like he's stable, when he feels like he's a good place, I much welcome him back to the team. Yeah.
Yes. Plus, Monte, they took my advice. They are actually playing out the Bachelor with effect. He's sat in Korea watching all these games, and they have to play their hearts out. And whichever one's doing a good enough job and impress him, he picks up the blue phone that goes straight to Astro and tells Astro, "Yep, keep that one. Yep, okay. Taimou can stay for now, and maybe Seagal. We'll see about the others." By the way, definitely kick Mayhem. I hate him. Like, see ya, dude. Unless he does couples counselling with AKM, then maybe that could fix it. You know?
So another with the Valiant as well, you guys went through major changes halfway through the season when you picked up a whole bunch of new players. How has that been going for you guys? Because I know talking to Noah, part of it was, you know, we want to have 12 players. We want to be able to internally scrim. We want to have battles for these positions. And we've seen KSF only twice. KSF has yet to take a point in the Overwatch League. So what has been your experience with the revamped roster, considering you are one of the survivors of the old roster?
Yeah, I think it's been like really good for us overall. It was like pretty hard to get used to because we swapped a lot of things and we added a lot of players. So I was a little confused on like the direction of where the team was headed. But I think after we changed the roster and we had like a set main roster, we kind of just built a foundation off that. Like we added more players to kind of challenge our spots. Like we were kind of rushing to pick up new players because we had to challenge, or our coach wanted to challenge the main roster spots. So like we picked up Izayaki to challenge Kriv, KSF to challenge me, and then like Finzi to challenge Space and all that stuff. So yeah, we've had like the sister team running, and they've been playing scrims and shit as much as we have. So they've been doing good. But the thing is, like when we tried to put them on Gibraltar against Shanghai, they couldn't play with Izayaki and Finzi due to visa issues. Like they can't work in the States yet for another, I think, 60 days or something. Yeah, so that was like a little awkward for them because they've been practicing with that 6-man roster.
Yeah, you're used to that synergy.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're used to that. You built that synergy. You played like 6 to 8 hours a day or scrims a day, and then you don't get those two players who are very like fundamental. So that must be weird, and like that's why I understand why they lost to Shanghai and Gibraltar, and why it's a little hard for us. But I think that overall, once Finzi and Izayaki can play, they'll be like really good contenders because they're both really good players. So they'll definitely push the starting roster spots a lot, and it'll help us grow, I think.
So are you guys scrimming against them actively, or are they scrimming against other teams?
They're scrimming against other teams, but also we're scrimming against them when we need to like practice the set strat. So if we need to like play a lot of King's Row and stuff, it's good. Like having a sister team or like another team that you could just practice whatever you need to on that doesn't affect their practice, because like you can't do that against Overwatch teams because they have their own stuff to practice.
Right,
I think having that is like so important because I mean you could just go over the same things and you learn a lot that way. So yeah, we've been scrimming them a couple times. Like we actually scrimmed them for our warm up against Boston on our most recent match, and then we scrim them like maybe once to twice a week. So
it does make a lot of sense for you to scrim them as a warm-up for your next opponent. Did you have them try and like emulate Boston's heroes or strategies or anything?
No, we didn't really know what Boston was going to do exactly, so we just kind of had them play what they normally play, and then we tried to make counters off that. But pretty much everyone's playing the same thing right now, so they played really similar to what Boston was playing anyways, so it worked out well.
Because the thing is, Monte, next week is the real test for Valiant because they play Gladiators and New York.
That's true. It's going to be a hard week.
So first of all, the Battle of LA is a real thing now. I know it only finally mattered last stage, but it's a real thing now. It's not fake hype.
Exactly. Well, and like last stage, I think one of the things that Valiant benefited from was a weak early schedule. So you guys are coming in at 4-0, but you've also played Shanghai, Florida, Boston in their bad state, and Seoul in their bad state, and you've struggled in those games. So do you think this is an issue for you guys, that you do seem to have, like, you've had some easy runs at the beginning of stages and then sort of petered off as time went on?
Yeah, I think it is an issue, but I think with the new meta, we have a better idea of how to fix it. Like last stage, like we kind of fell off at the end because, I mean, we had communication issues, but this time, like, we have a good coaching staff to help us, like, understand the new meta and the counter picks we need to make. And I think like the new meta is kind of like a reset for us. So we have Custa as the designated shot caller. Like, we mainly listen to him now instead of only Fate. And then Fate obviously chimes in because they're both very smart players. So I think that'll help us a lot. And then against the other teams, we have a coaching staff to prepare us, like Aero does for Dallas, and like their coaching staff does. Because counter strats are so important this stage, even more so than they were before, because everyone just played the same things. So yeah, I think that, you know, once we figure out how to solve our communication issues in game, and we kind of, you know, just figure out what to play and stuff like that, we'll be good against the higher up teams, even though we've had an easier schedule so far.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Custa.
At the very end, by the way, in the last game for Valiant, they play Dallas Fuel on the second to last day of the season. So that could be a tough game. You might be playing people literally playing for their careers.
Yeah, exactly.
They'll have their backs against the wall. You know, a cornered animal is the most dangerous. Cornered Taimou is the most dangerous.
Also, it could be a very important match for the Valiant, too, because that could dictate whether they go to the season playoffs. So,
True.
Yes. But then again, who knows? By then, Dallas might be in the stage playoffs. That might not be it.
Well, they might be in the stage playoffs, but they won't be in the season
we
playoffs.
We can't make season playoffs.
Here's the thing, Monte. You always bring that up. You are the number one hater of the stage playoffs. Every time I mention someone's won a stage playoffs or someone's going to make the play, you're always like, yeah, but it doesn't really matter. You know, it's about the overall playoffs. Did you see that graphic someone made the other day of what New York Excelsior's won so far? They've won 600 grand. You know what, Monte? It's not the real playoffs. I'll take that 600 grand.
Hey.
Ship that over to me. I'll take the fake playoff.
You realize that a lot of that money is in fact money that they're going to win from the stage playoffs, because there's a bonus system. So by placing first overall, which has nothing to do with stage playoffs, they won $300,000, and some of that other money was from them minimal, like they finish at least top 4. So at worst they can finish top 4, and so it's that money as well. It's only 100 grand for the stage playoff wins, which when you everybody's like, oh well, that is a lot of money, but when you divide it through the org, all the players, the coaches, everything, it doesn't end up being that much.
Still money, though. You
You're
still
right.
win.
It is technically money.
Put it this way.
Yeah.
Yeah, the problem with looking only at the stage playoffs, though, for the season playoffs rather, is then it's like a one and done, isn't it? So you might have been awesome the whole season. Like if you were one of the teams, okay, so think of like the Philadelphia team, like they've generally gotten better and better most stages. They've been fairly good. If they just went out first round in the season playoffs, you can't just think, oh, their season was pure shit. You know, that's the problem with it.
Imagine if New York somehow just became
Would be funny,
shit.
wouldn't it?
It would be so funny.
That's
but
the sad thing. Whenever someone has a dodgy format, Taimou, that's why I always pull format. I always hope for the worst possible thing to happen. Like, you know, the best teams to play each other first round, the best team to lose to the worst team. Like, that's because the problem is, you know, I would like to appeal to reason and get people to change things, but if that can't happen, just let the world burn. Let the worst things happen, then they'll learn.
Yeah, we should definitely play best of ones in Overwatch like they do in CS:GO. They're so skilled.
Yeah. League of Legends, mainly. We've actually moved to best of 3s now, believe it or not. It's League of Legends that's moved back in time to best of 1s.
That was
so
one of the worst changes I've ever seen in an esport, is moving back to best
Not
of
bad,
1.
right? Yeah.
I was like, what the actual fuck?
No, what's genius about it in Monte is this. This is the genius, is what they're basically telling you is, yeah, our fans don't really want to watch a lot of games in our game because it gets boring. It's like, wait a minute. Fans of your own game don't want to watch more matches. Like, I'm confused here. No. They just want to watch as little as possible.
It's this thing that Riot has. So Riot's mentality is, for whatever reason, and I really don't understand this, they're like, we want people to be fans of the LCS.
Yes.
Not teams, of the LCS. So their thing is like, well, if you're an LCS fan, you should watch all the games. Literally no sport does that. Nobody's like, the NFL's not like, I want you to be fans of the NFL and watch every game every week. They're like, no, pick a team, watch that team. Or watch the good games, that are going on. Like the NFL's like, we are going to put only one game on Sunday nights because it's the best game, and we're gonna flex the schedule into that time slot so that you can watch it. Everyone can watch it. It's like,
here's the problem:
why wouldn't you just have more games for the fans of those teams and have those fans watch those games? Like, I don't understand that philosophy at all.
The problem is, I can relate, Monty, because I'm a man who keeps buying pick and mix. You know what pick and mix is? It's where you have the option of all the different candies, right? You can take however many you want out of each. You put them in a big bag, So you take 3 of the little fried eggs ones. I love those ones, little fried egg. It doesn't taste like egg. Whatever, it's fun. You get the ones that are the lips. You remember the fake lips, Monty, the little red lips? You get the cola bottles. We all like the cola bottles. The fizzy strip, the sour one. You like that? The rope of licorice. You're getting all this stuff together. Here's the problem, Monty. It seems every time, I get tricked so many times. I always think this is going to be awesome because I get to have all the candies. But you know what happens every time you start eating the pick and mix? You start eating and you eat one of them that's delicious and you go, I'd like some more of that. Oh, shit, I only got 3 of those. Now I have to eat this different one. Then it's like a licorice one. I mean, these are all right, I guess. When's this finished? Like, when am I getting to the next one? Fried eggs. I mean, that was funny, but they don't taste like egg even. It's just a sort of bland, mallow taste. That's what the LCS is like. It's like, oh, this one's all right. Is there any more? No, next week. Right. Oh, okay. Oh, shit, what's coming up now? I don't really like those, but I guess I'll wait through it to get the next one, It's pick and mix. That's the LCS. There you go.
At least we now know... We have a reason to use the expression like a Thorin in a candy store, which is exciting.
Yes.
But anyway,
I've done it too many times. Yeah.
Beyond garbage formats,
something about Custa, wasn't it?
Yes, I was going to ask about Custa because you guys have now both been teammates of Custa. So what has the Custa trade? Obviously, you got Unco in return on the Dallas Fuel. How has this changed the Dallas Fuel and the LA Valiant, swapping these players between the two of you?
For us, it's been like Custa's been like kind of like the rock. He's been holding the team together. Him and Space were on a team together as well, so they have like previous synergy, and they're good friends. So that helped a lot. And then Custa just basically helps with our team environment. Like, he's very positive. He's like a leader figure that we can all relate to and that we all respect like immensely. So he's been a very big help and basically like a stepping stone for us from like kind of not so good team environment because we didn't really communicate that well before. And then so we got Custa. He basically just stood up and he basically led us to being better, and then that worked out well for us.
Yeah, I think we got what we got from the trade. We lost it. We lost a good friend. We lost a very like he's a born leader, but he lacks mechanical skill on Zenyatta while he was playing in our team, right? So we got Uncle instead, who's fucking insane at Zenyatta and Ana and almost anything he plays, right? So in hindsight now afterwards that the new stage started, like it's 100% worth it from a logical team point of view, but before it made no sense.
As in it now makes sense to have Uncle instead of Custa. Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think like we were a little confused on why Dallas went through with the trade because we thought Custa was like I was talking to Seagal actually, and Seagal told me that like he's so important to the team and that they have no idea why he would trade it. So that was a little confusing to me because I mean, obviously I was excited because we needed someone like Custa, so I'm happy that we got him. But I was a little confused on why Dallas was so like eager to give him up when they were in such a bad spot.
We didn't know either. Like the thing is, like, we have no idea why that trade ever happened. Right?
Can you move back in the frame, please, Taimou? You are completely out of the frame. I can't extend it any further. The camera only goes so far. Yeah. Can you move the camera or yourself? One of the two.
Oh, sorry, my bad. But yeah, like even the players themselves, like we never understood, right?
So who made this trade then?
It was the orgs, I think.
Organization, Kyle, I don't fucking know.
What happened was Hastro was playing poker against Noah Winston, right? And he was like, "Oh, I'm going to get you with this hand." Yeah. And then he goes, "No, you haven't got any more money because I'm all in." And he goes, "Oh, shit. Well, I haven't got anything else to bet, have I?"
I actually think one of the reasons might be because Uncle wanted to go, and I think Kyle said something in the lines of LA Valiant probably gave us an offer to give Custa for Uncle, I think.
Okay.
And then
I like how no one knows.
Yeah.
and it's like
Classic esports.
it's like I think Kyle gave him the team gave him the chance to switch because Uncle really wanted to come to Dallas.
For what reason? To play with AKM?
To play with AKM. Okay. And then I think Custa had if I remember correctly, I think Custa had the decision to go, but that still doesn't make that much sense, right? Imagine
the ego that must be on Uncle that he actually wanted to come to the Dallas Fuel. Like he was like, if I go there, it'll probably be okay when I'm there. I mean, every other player I know is just falling apart, torn apart mentally, trying to find who they are as an identity, as a player and a person. But if I go there, it'll probably be fine. I think I'm just that good. That's cool. I think he's a baller.
He's a baller. Uncle, when he came to the team, he was very vocal for 2 days, and then everything went to shit, and he then he stopped being vocal. But then I think the team gave up after we had to give Custa up, right? We literally all of us gave up. We're like, fuck this. This is shit. What this is There's no way we're gonna.
That's
ever
just
win
the Custa of doing business.
And,
oh my god!
Nice meme, Thorin. But
yeah,
then
there we go.
Nice fun. But then
that's the title of the episode: Custa doing business.
But then, now this is happening. I feel like Uncle is blooming into this, he's so vocal all of a sudden, he's fucking screaming from the top of his lungs, which target he's discarding, shoot this target, and it's so that also helps us so much because even when Custa was playing, he would call discards here and then, but he would also talk a lot of shit, so he would, there was a lot of things he had to say, so he wouldn't always be like that, but actually having your Zen call the targets, it's so easy. It's insanely easy.
Okay. I like the way, after all the really good things Agilities said, everyone in their mind was like, fuck, what's Taimou going to say now? And Taimou somehow spun the whole thing. So it's so anyway, yeah, in short, fuck Custa. Uncle's sick. He's so good. It's so easy to play with him now. It's fucking amazing. His mechanical skill, he can do anything. The thing about that other guy was, nice guy and everything, but, it's not about friendship. I mean, I made a win, I like it. He spun it completely, Monte. He's well done. At the end, even I was thinking, but wait a minute. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I think it's just because the role switch. That's a big part of it.
Yes.
I think Custa was good for a good amount of time when the scene was developing. But I think Mercy and Lucio as a role suit him a lot better because he can be vocal about the stuff that he's comfortable being vocal about. He can call strats and he can make swaps and stuff, and basically just focus on everything else but playing mechanically well. So that gives him a lot of room to make calls and stuff like that, and it's good for him, I think.
Yep, it is.
So
he probably enjoys playing.
Here's a question. Here's a question for you. If that's the case, why was he playing Zen on the Dallas Fuel instead of playing the Mercy role?
So in Dallas Fuel, we're I don't know what went through our coach's heads back then, but it was we have this trio of Harry, Custa, and Chips, and then they're testing okay, Harry's playing Zen today, and Chips is playing Mercy today. Okay, what's going on? Okay, Harry is lacking something while playing Zen. Okay, Chips is lacking something while playing Mercy. So the next day, we're playing Harry and Mercy, Custa and Zen. And then, okay, Custa's not very good at Zen at this thing, and then Harry's not this good at this thing at Mercy, and they're like this constant fucking swap all the time. We never had a 6. And it's like
so it's sort of like a Rubik's cube. You just keep moving it until it seems like everything's not. Yeah, that seems right. Blue on the other side. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very disheartening to play the game back then.
Or that other game, you remember the game as well that you have, where you have all those cards turned over and you turn one up, it's like a 6 of diamonds, but you have to turn it back, and then you turn another one over, it's like a 7 of spades, and you keep going until you see the other 7 diamonds. Oh, that's your 7 diamonds. Where was diamonds? Which one was that? It was over here again, right? That's what their scrims are like, Monty. It's like, wait a minute, he's okay on Zen actually. Wait, but who was it who was shit on Zen, but is good on the Mercy, right? I think it was him. Let's try that one. No, it isn't right. Custa, you're on it now, and Taimou, you're Winston. No, that doesn't work. XQC, you ever going to be able to play? No, right. Take his cards off the desk. Take them off. We'll take them off. The Joker cards aren't helping. Okay.
That was literally how it was. We were just swapped around 24/7. We had no idea what we were fucking doing, and then it felt like every player, no matter what we played, somebody had some kind of weakness, and then we were trying to find some kind of perfection that, okay, well, if Harry's going to play scrims for a week on Zen, he's probably going to get good at it, right?
Okay.
But, I mean, just give him a month, maybe?
I feel like perfection might have been the wrong choice of words there. Like, I can't imagine someone walking into this mess and going, Kai, what the fuck are you trying to do here? Shh, I'm trying to achieve perfection. Well, you're very fucking far right now, my friend. You know what? You are very fucking far.
I don't know. I have nothing bad to say about Kyle as a...
Why would you? He's gone. Don't worry about it. I mean, he's gone, mate. Problem's over. See ya.
That's the thing. He's gone. He's Houston's...
Worked out for everyone?
Yeah, it worked for everybody. He's either Houston's help or a problem. I don't know which one it is, but...
And anything else you might have to say about him would come out in a forthcoming interview anyway, so no point retreading the same ground twice. So, you know. Yeah. And
like you're now using our show to
I am,
to tease your other show.
Okay, I've got a question for you. So a team we haven't talked about at all is, except when we talked indirectly about Boston losing their coach, Krusty, who obviously went over to the Shock, is the Shock generally have looked way better this season. I mean, they beat Seoul. They had a really great game against London this week. Beat the Outlaws. What do you think of the new Shock? I mean, it really is a new Shock, because half the players aren't the same ones from the first few stages. What do you think of this team?
I think Shock actually, the thing with Shock is, they never seem to have real good coaching. It seems like their players are able to play different heroes, but they never really come together, right? But now it seems like Krusty was coaching Boston, and Boston's dive was fucking insane, right? And now Shock never seemed to be able to play dive either, but now they're suddenly playing dive almost everywhere, right? And I think Krusty's doing a good job coaching them to play that shit, you know? We don't know to what extent, but...
Yeah, I do think that part of it was that, when we think about Stage 1 San Francisco Shock, it was a very defensive team, right? It was sit back, let Baby Bay snipe. But one of the reasons why they can play more dive now is obviously not only has Dante improved, but they have Sinatra, right? And they have Architect to play the Genji. So a lot of it was them getting the right players to play the dive, which has also changed their... To
be honest, Dante was probably... America's top 3 Genji before Overwatch started, but he started playing Tracer, and then he became really fucking good at Tracer. But there was never a time where they could have not played a scuffed Tracer and a good Genji with dive. They were definitely able to dive with their old players too, but they just never did, which I found very odd.
I mean, we did see some of the Genji from Dante at times, but I don't think it was good stylistically for the players that they had on their roster, because Dante had to play it, or Baby Bay had to play the Genji. And I think that you really need somebody aggressive on an aggressive partner to go in with that dive. And that really wasn't their MO. And they also needed somebody to play Tracer at the time. So your best Tracer and your best Genji were the same player.
Yeah, true.
And we obviously almost never see Baby B. He played like some McCree in one game this week. That's it. You just don't.
He was
see him
actually
in the
really
lineup
good this
anymore.
week, but
Yeah,
on an
it was-
individual level, he performed very nicely.
It was doing good, yeah.
What do you actually think is the trajectory for this team then? They've obviously played some pretty good squads already. Record's pretty good. They've actually got a fairly light schedule from here on out, it looks like,
I think
till the end.
Shock, as good as they looked against Houston, I think Houston is. I overrated them personally. I thought they were much better, but I think they're pretty shit.
Why though? This was supposed to be their time, Taimou. This is supposed to be their time, mate. Their meta.
Like the thing is, like Junkrat is shit. Like, okay, he's not shit. He's just not very good. He's okay. And then they're struggling. They're okay. Jake is pretty good at Brigitta, and their double sniper, their King's Row seems pretty good. But aside from that, when they can't like abuse King's Row and double sniper, like even their old best map, which is Horizon, right? So like even on Horizon, they just got massacred on that map. They couldn't stop Shock's dive, and they didn't know really how to push either. And I feel like they're regressing too. But like the thing is, like I don't know what's causing it. Like they should be able to play the exact same heroes we're playing, right? But why are they playing this badly is my question. Like I don't know either, right?
I mean, the turnover in the Overwatch League has been pretty crazy from stage to stage. Like some of the teams that are going towards the bottom now were obviously doing so well in like stage 2 and stage 3.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think part of that is just a lot of these teams are new. They don't, they've been building out their infrastructures. We've never had a league that was this long because both of you guys can speak to the fact that you played prior to Overwatch League. It was a very different competition, whether you were in contenders like Agilities was, or whether you were at Apex like Taimou was. And it's much more rigorous now. And I think it's just going to take teams time to figure out the best ways to do that and how to sort of maintain consistency over such a long period, over patch changes. Do you have the right staff to coach you properly? Do you have the sports psychologist you need? It's tough, I think. And so I think we've seen a lot of variance this season, but as the orgs get a better grasp and the players get a better grasp on how to pace themselves, I think it's going to be different.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I agree with that.
What do you think Agilities of the Outlaws then? Because obviously they started the season, they beat the London team, and now, I mean, Taimou thinks that they're overrated basically, or he overrated them at least.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Taimou, but like I'm not 100% sure because I haven't really watched their games. But like at the start of the season when they were doing really well, like they destroyed London, they were like obviously doing very consistently well, and they looked really strong. And the meta seemed strong for them because they could have links around Widow, which he's like one of the best at, and then they could put Jake on Junkrat and Jake on other heroes other than like Genji or Pharah, because they didn't have the best dive obviously. So I think everyone expected teams that didn't have good dive to do good in this meta because you can't play dive, right? So that probably kind of overrated them for me. And then
me too.
Seeing them lose to Shock, it's like these guys have a weakness obviously. So I think when we play them, we just need to figure out what that is, and then we could beat them pretty easily.
I think honestly it was Gladiators really showed, because I really agreed with what the analyst desk was saying in those games, because we heard them talking a lot about how, so they had been running certain like double sniper comps on attack, right? And on Hanamura, when they faced off against the Gladiators, what happened was Gladiators just played Orisa Hog and just sat there. And so they forced them off the double sniper, because obviously you're not going to get through the Orisa shield. And if you try and peek into the main choke, like we were talking about earlier in this episode, you're going to get halt hooked. Like you're going to get comboed and killed because you just don't have enough range to fire a shot and also avoid those abilities. Now that forced Jake onto the Tracer again, because they had to figure out a way to get the Tracer around and pressure a back cap to move them, basically. And that just doesn't work. Like Surefour was winning Widow battles against the Tracer. It was just not effective. So I think what Gladiator showed is if you just play Orisa, like Orisa Junkrat Widow versus Houston, they can't do anything to you. Like you can force them into a situation where Genji Tracer dive is the most commonly used counter strat, and they can't break it with the Hanzo Widow compositions that they've been running. And that's what the Shock did too. You just run heavy Orisa or you run dive into them, and they have a lot of issues.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think they had an advantage in the first week when they came in with a lot of strategies that were effective in this meta. But the thing is, people hadn't figured out how to change compositions to deal with them at the time. Now people have figured that out by week 2. Because remember, everybody was so... nobody even knew what the patch was until the day before the stage started, and it was a mess. But that also empowered certain teams who had figured out one strong strategy before anybody else had a chance to figure out how to deal with it. Okay. I think Gladiators showed very effectively how to deal with the Outlaws, and the Shock just sort of followed in their footsteps.
Because the thing is, Houston does have what I call the pick-me-up week coming, where you play Shanghai Dragons and then Florida Mayhem right afterwards. But even so, they are one of the teams who has one of the hardest paths to get into the season playoffs. Well, so as it stands right now, probably not going to make it, right?
Right, and that was what was so shit for them, was that they basically had to beat San Francisco. Like, San Francisco... You need to win against the teams lower than you in the standings if you want to crack into the top 6 and go to the playoffs. Because if you don't win against the lower teams, you have to win against the better teams, right? There's no margin for error any longer. And they didn't do that. So now they're in a really awful situation because they're a game behind the Seoul Dynasty. At least they have a better map score if they were to tie. And Seoul obviously isn't looking great, but at least they're looking better now that I think Mira and Kuki are back in at main tank again. But we'll talk about that, I'm sure, in a minute. But Houston now, like you say, okay, well, they've got a relatively soft week ahead where they're playing Florida and they're playing Shanghai. They should win both of those matches. But then they have to play Fuel, who's doing better, obviously. They play both of you guys in the week after that, and then they play Philly and New York to round out the stage. That's going to be rough.
I feel like most teams, like almost every team, thought that Houston is going to be very, very good because everybody expected, us included, that when Brigitta is being played, because she's so overpowered in a way, everybody's going to stop playing Junkrat. But it turns out that Junkrat, with the new Mind nerf and not being able to do super consistent damage as he was before, and tires are so easy to kill with comps like Reinhardt, Diva, Brigitta. Like you just run at the tire. You don't give a shit about the tire, and you also have a Widow shooting at the tire. So the tire basically, most of the time, it's a non-existent thing, right? And then Junkrat got nerfed a bit, so he's not that good, and everybody just learned to play against the Junkrat. So I think Houston was very overrated by teams. I think they still can be better, but I feel like right now their weakness is definitely Jake plus their supports.
Well, their flexibility is really
that's putting them behind. I think if Jake really learns how to play Brigitta well, he'll be like the second Mickey. Like I think the team will be very good if they learn how to play it, but if they don't, they're fucked.
Right, since you teased it. Oh yeah, come on, Agilities, come on.
I was gonna say it kind of sucks that like Dive was so popular, and then they brought in Arhan, and then as soon as he got here and he could play and stuff, that Dive just started sucking. It's kind of
It doesn't suck. It's still perfectly viable. It's just more situational.
Yeah,
it's true.
We want it to be like the default strategy you could play anywhere. That's not a good game, right?
Yeah.
You, as a professional, you want to see more strategies, more countering, more adaptation, not just, hey, we're losing this map. Good thing we know how to play dive well. We can play it at any situation.
Like Boston, for example, like they would never ever play anything else than dive or some form of dive, right?
Yeah.
And like they were so good. Gumsu and Striker were so good at Monkey and Tracer. And Striker, I think Striker's Tracer is the best, the absolute best in the league by far, even higher than Sabiolbi, who's a fucking monster too. And like that's what made Boston so good. But now that Tracer is non-existent most times, and teams counter-strat you, and you're not able to counter-strat them, so this is what happens. I think Boston is going to go 2-8 this stage, and they will miss the playoffs.
I think that's not unreasonable given their start, and like I said, given their seeming wealth of problems that they have.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Monte teased it already, but let's talk about Seoul Dynasty. So Taimou, they have some players on this team who used to be really good a year or two ago, so you can relate. Mm-hmm. What do you think of it? Isn't it depressing seeing how bad Seoul Dynasty is?
It's easy to project ourselves into their shoes. Like, we're in the same situation. Like we used to be so good, and now we're both shit. I think I don't know.
Your team's winning games now, at least.
Yeah, at least we're winning now.
Yeah, they're not doing shit
Seoul
though.
Isn't.
Yeah,
but like, I don't know what's their problem. I think their problem might be coaching too. Like, I feel like their coaches are doing something wrong.
Why do they have 3 head coaches?
Yeah, I don't know.
They've got like 5 coaches in total, and like their head coach.
That's also
what is
like,
going on?
Like they have one-on-one coaches. They have fucking analysts. They have 3 coaches. They have all these tools, but how can they still suck so much dick?
Is the Seoul Dynasty some sort of front for money laundering, and they've just hired every one of their members of their family, and they're like, right, he gets a salary 20,000, he gets 50,000, he gets 25,000, he's an assistant coach.
In my opinion, it has to be either massive motivation problems, like let's say maybe people want to retire, they don't like the game anymore.
There was a post that said that Ri Jehong was like, he doesn't know if he'll be in season 2, which is ominous. He's already started Dallas Fuel tweeting. You're right, it is. It's the Korean Dallas Fuel.
he was just concerned about himself. I think he was more concerned.
He thinks he's not good enough.
Yeah, I think he just doesn't think he's good enough. I don't think he's just afraid of getting kicked from the team. But I feel like it has to be a combination of motivation issues and also coaching. The coaches fighting each other and just doing random shit. Like, there's no other reason that team should be so fucking good. But
you think so?
They're not. Yeah, I think with the lineup they have, like, they have insane amount of talent. Sure, they might not have the best players, but they used to have such insane team coordination, switches. They had all these strats worked out, but now it seems like they have nothing. And
yes,
it's odd. It's very odd.
So, how did you feel about the Jaehong? Both of you, how did you feel about the Jaehong tank swapping experiment? Taimou, you were covering main tank yourself, and now Jaehong is back playing flex support.
I feel like they did that because either Miro was sick or Miro.
I mean, Miro was bad. Let's be clear.
I mean, yeah, sure, maybe, but it doesn't justify you to put your, unless Jaehong wanted it himself. I don't think that's a good move. Like, and I don't know if Jaehong in any fucking dimension would put himself to.
I like the way we're already in figuring out, like, did he jump or was he pushed? Like,
I don't think he jumped, dude. I feel like that has to be a coaching decision. Like, there's no way he put himself in Winston.
I think
no one ever intentionally comes up Winston, right?
Yeah.
Taimou?
Yeah, I mean, I did.
You did. You intentionally became.
It was because we couldn't play with Coco because he was having a bad mentality, and then XQC's banned. So Kyle's like, okay, who's gonna play Winston? I'm like, I mean, I did really well in the scrims for a week.
Yeah,
you were bad.
Yeah,
I'm like, okay, let's fucking go. Then the all the maps switch, and I'm like, okay, I don't know how to play this game anymore, and our team sucks dick, so I'm just feeding.
But anyway, don't go into too much more detail on that. Probably be more of that coming out soon.
Fine, I guess we'll get Agilities' opinion on the Soul.
Agilities. I haven't done any interviews with you, mate. Say what you want.
Alright, so I think that Jaehong made sense on Monkey because I feel like, obviously I don't know what goes on that team, but I feel like he would have a very strong presence, and he's like a natural born leader / shot caller. And I feel like he could have helped them in that sense because Monkey doesn't take a lot of mechanical skill, and he calls really well, probably better than Miro did, and that's why they did it. Then once like Reinhardt started being played, like you have your Zenyatta player playing Reinhardt, right? And you can't really call and make all that shit on Ryan. You can't call dives and coordinate stuff. So after Reinhardt became a thing again, and Monkey started sucking or being not as good because of the new meta, that it just made no sense to have Jaehong on Ryan because there's no point. You have Miro, he's decent Ryan, and then Jaehong also can't make all the calls on Ryan, so it makes no sense.
What I've heard is that Jaehong is not the shot caller for the team.
Not even when he was on Monkey?
No.
No?
I
makes less
yeah, that's why I'm surprised why he would go Monkey, because I've known prior that he was not the shot caller for the team ever, at almost no point. So
that's just a myth.
Yeah, that's just a myth in my. But I mean, we'll probably never know because
I mean, someone could just fucking ask him.
I mean, it's
crazy thought, instead of us all just assuming it for like a year, 2 years or something.
It's fun it's more fun to speculate.
It is, yeah.
Thorin does, in fact, find it significantly more fun to speculate.
Yeah, why not? Trying to get all the information is really difficult,
Yeah.
I'm the slasher of hosting shows. I just speculate. Don't need the information. Why would I need that? And then if someone criticizes you, just get defensive. Just be like, yeah, but I was just starting a conversation. Except in my case, I literally was starting a conversation. That's actually my job, believe it or not. So, does it ever turn around for Seoul then? Because here's the problem. Despite the fact I said before, so many teams have been up and down depending on which stage, what meta it is. Actually, Seoul has been fairly consistently underwhelming. They maybe had a little moment in stage 2 where they had like a little spike. But aside from that, like they've never been the best Korean team in the Overwatch League. They've never made one of the playoffs. Like, does it ever get better for Dynasty? Do they ever turn the corner?
I think so. Like Taimou said, like looking at their roster, just the players, like they have so much potential, and like the talent is insane. But I think they just I agree with what Taimou said about the coaching staff. Like I think they just need to figure out a way to use other players without like messing up and making mistakes, and then once they get a consistent roster and stuff, they can just keep playing with that and growing. And also I think meta also kind of depends on that, but they can play most things, so they should be good. Like I don't understand why they're not.
Plus, they do have that secret in their back pocket, Monty, that no one's thinking about, which is that if you are the London Spitfire or the Seoul Dynasty, at any point in time, you can just call in the bannermen. You can just tell all the really good Koreans who aren't on the all-Korean teams, you want to come and join? You want to come and play for an all-Korean team? And then even if they're on a good team, they're going to be like, please, coach. In fact, if any Korean watching this right now, let's face it, none of you are watching it, so it doesn't fucking matter, but let's pretend you're all watching, right? All of you Korean players on non-Korean teams watching this right now, I'll even tell you how you get out of your team. You're thinking, but Thorin, they love me in this team. I'm doing really well. This team's even good. No. Have you ever seen the interviews? Go to whoever your owner is. Hastro, whoever, I don't know why I said Hastro, whoever it might be. No, Winston. You go to them and you say, you have been like a father figure to me, Noah / Hastro. As a father figure, I would really appreciate it on a man-to-man level if you were to let me go and play in this and advance my career on this team. End press release. And then you know what he has to do, doesn't he? He has to come out and do it and go, I had to facilitate the move of this player. He was like family to me, he looked up to me like a father figure. There you go, you've played him like a sucker. And then you're off his team. You're on Seoul Dynasty, you're on the London Spitfire, you're balling out of control. You don't have to put up with the shit of those Western players. They don't know what the fuck they do. You don't have to play Shanghai Dragons 7 times in a row now before going back to Korea because you lost your sanity. You're back in the game. You're back in the game, mate.
I do agree with you. So as an opportunity to recruit obviously more Korean players until we get another Korean, like an actual Korean team. I think people will always prefer to represent Seoul, especially when we localize and they can actually live in Korea and not live in America or Britain. So
see, if you're effect, that literally that kills 2 birds with 1 stone. You're already in Korea. You don't have to go back to Korea, mate. You're already there. There's no problem.
Stay there.
Yeah.
I actually predicted it that Korean teams coming into Overwatch League, most of them, I thought all of them would struggle, but it's good to see that New York is actually, like, they're doing a good effort and they're winning everything, so obviously they're doing a good job.
Like that. Wait a minute, how understated are you? A good effort. They have won 31 out of like 34 games. What do you want from them?
What more can they do to impress you, Taimou?
I guess they're good, and they have had a good effort.
It's my third language. Excuse me, okay. Anyway, I think London and I think the players in London and in Seoul definitely have some kind of homesick problem because and on top of their all other problems. So I think that's hurting them right now.
Too long in La La Land. Exactly. It gets to everyone in the end, Taimou. Here's the thing, though. When you said all that about Dynasty, they have such good players, doesn't that apply even more so to the London Spitfire team? They still look like they should have the best team in the league.
Yeah, I don't right now. I'm not sure which team is worse, Seoul or London. They both seem to be on the lower mid tier.
I think London is going to get their shit back together. I think you look at what happened this last week with them when they cut those players and Birdring started to perform again. I mean, Birdring played really well yesterday.
Yeah, he was performing in scrims too. He was slapping my ass.
Is that good or bad? Is that supposed to be good or bad?
It's both.
Okay, right. So Taimou's the big booty girl in the rap video, and London is the rapper slapping his ass. Right? Okay. Okay. That's a nice image just to have there.
I mean, Monte loves to think about me naked, so it's not that.
I do. It's actually one of my favorite pastime.
Yeah. It's the way he started the phrase after we just said that. Well, Monte loves to. Yes, slap big booty girls in rap videos. What does Monte love to do? What?
I mean, I'm not going to say I wouldn't enjoy that, but
okay. that would be a video I would like to see used for the Overwatch. Monte in a fucking lowrider with girls on the bonnet. Slap. Although then again, sadly, that's one of the few skits we'll never see in the Overwatch League if you think of the political environment the Overwatch League exists in, Monte. I feel like that sketch might not get through approval.
I think I could make it happen.
Okay. Well, you'd have to just make it the opposite. You'd reverse the genders, wouldn't you? It'd be all the men would be the ones where their asses getting slapped, and all the women would be powerful, empowered figures.
Maybe I'd be
exactly. Maybe Soy would be slapping your ass on the hood, Monte. There you go. We've solved it. We've got the skit through finally with approval. Good.
It's always
so what do you think then? Actually, we didn't bring that topic up. So what do you think of London? Here's the thing, Monte. You've complained so many times about them having too many players and why do some of the players get playing time? Right. My solution to that was just don't play some of them. They went right. Well, if you're going to do something, do it right. Cut half the team. Get out. Whoa, guys.
So there's only two ways to read into this, right?
Yeah.
Because the question becomes, well, why couldn't you just literally not play those players and keep them in your house as an option? Taimou's webcam went away.
I know.
Oh, he's back.
Right. So if that's your choice, you could only read into this one of two ways. Either the coaches were somehow physically unable to control themselves from writing in substitutions on the players who were around. So it's almost like the coaches themselves somehow, if they were sitting in the dugout and it was halftime and so there's a knock on the door. Hey, who are you substituting? And then their possessed hand would actually force them to write the other players' names onto that sheet and hand it in and swap out those players. So either the coaches have no willpower in order to do that, or the players themselves were disruptive in a way that they were saying, hey, I want to play. And the coaches were like, okay, well, to keep sanity in the team house, we must ergo play, we must play these players. But either way, I think you have to read into this situation as a failure of coaching. Because
I like the willpower one because it's more like when you're trying a diet, so you shouldn't buy any of the candy and stuff because if it's in you're going to think about it when it gets late at night. It's like that joke, like the crisps are going to be calling to you from there. Fuck. Or either that, or there was some sort of internal sabotage because they have so many coaching staff in all these different teams. Money when they would go to submit the roster, one of the players was like, "I'll take it for your coach," and then he's just writing his own name in there for map 3, handed it in. Well, what are you doing in it? Well, it's on the sheet, so there you go. I guess you're in.
Exactly. So either way, either it was the players couldn't be kept in line, or in order to facilitate a good environment, or the coaches didn't know which players were good at what and which to substitute in. Either way, the problem resolves itself by doing this, like sending half those players back to Korea, even though they're still technically on the roster. I just think like you have to attribute that to coaching mistakes. Any way you cut it, any way you slice it, that's a coaching problem.
The problem is, though, some of these players that they've cut were players I have heard you praise on this show.
Yeah, it's not
like
they cut.
Didn't you think Hureg was a pretty good player?
Did I think who?
Hureg?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's not the smartest player, but he's mechanically good, and I think he stepped in well for Birdring when Birdring was gone, but Birdring has a much higher ceiling than Hureg does. I think Hureg is an OWL-capable player, don't get me wrong. I think all of the players they cut could be on another team in Overwatch League. Wu Hyal's good, it's just he's very aggressive, and his style doesn't work with Gesture as well as Fury's does. Hureg is good, he just needs somebody to, I think, manage his hero pool for him, as in tell him when to make selections, and he's a very mechanically good player. I think Hagapun is a good player, he's just not as good as Bedosian is. So I think TZ is an excellent tank, but again, London has the problem having two really fucking good main tanks. TZ will 100% be on an OWL team as a starter next year. He is very good. So I just think they had to get rid of these players to eliminate their own indecision, right? Coaches were causing these problems, and they had to do something about it, and they did. So I think the decision is good, even though they did end up cutting some good players who I think will just be on other teams in the future.
Well, the implication also is they've cleared room and they're going to bring in some other players. Like, you're not going to only have two DPS players. You know, you're going to have some backups, presumably. So maybe they try new talent.
Maybe you bring Rascal back.
Remember him, Taimou, Rascal, briefly? He was there for like a week or something.
What are we talking about? Hello?
It's the Korean who isn't in Korea right now, but he is. But he's not called OG, and you are allowed to say his name. So that I think I've eliminated all the different circumstances there.
Good.
What do you think of Hureg?
What do I think of Hureg? What would I say? I think Hureg is like he was the one-trick McCree at one point, and then he started playing Widow. I think his Tracer was okay too, but I think he's like a mid-tier hit scan specialist for a team. But I don't like he could be like, let's say you have 6 star players, and then your star players only can play dive, like literally nothing else, and then you need a hit scan. Then you can have Hureg in, because like he fits like most teams. He would fit most teams with his not that aggressive play style and just being good at shooting people in the head, right? So he could be a player like that. But like he's still not as good as most player like hit scan specialists are.
Are you better than him right now?
Yes.
Okay, there we go. A little bit of confidence, nice. Okay, then, does this all tie in then, Monte? Does the fact that now London does have a set team, I mean, at this point they actually have to play all the best DPS players all the time. So
yeah,
now
great. Now we get the best DPS duo in the league back. Birdring and
is that automatically going to put them on the right track, you think?
I think it absolutely does. I think this is a really good situation for London overall. I think this is the change that they had to make to stop themselves from making terrible decisions, which sometimes that's what you need. And that's what's going to happen. I think they already looked way better this last week. I think Birdring played amazingly versus Seoul. I think they're only going to get better over time. And it couldn't have come at a better time. Right now, they moved up with their For Seoul, they moved to second place overall in the standings, so they're unlikely to be eliminated from the playoff race anytime soon or at all. And as long as they're good by the time playoffs start, it doesn't really matter if they're 5th or 6th seed, even if they go 50-50, because they're still going to be like the skill ceiling on this team has always been super high. So as long as they make playoffs, which they seem really, really likely to do right now, they are still going to be a contender for the championship. We've seen that already. They've already beaten New York in a stage playoff, right?
Okay. Right, okay, since earlier on when Taimou referred to the New York Excelsior, who he referred to as having a good effort, which I rudely made fun of, even though he is correct. That is actually his third language. And he not only can speak English, he speaks it vaguely like someone would speak English words, not like a very, very good team and a good London. Like, he doesn't speak like that, which like everyone else in his country does. So fair play. I'll give him points for that. He gets bonus credit for not speaking rally Finnish. So... what do you think of the New York Excelsior right now, Taimou? Because on every other show, every 4 shows, we have to talk about why one team's on the way up and then why they've fallen off and why the meta change is affecting teams. Apparently nothing affects the New York Excelsior ever, except occasionally they lose a few maps in a stage playoff game where they don't quite know if they're playing someone instant. That's about all. That's like the tension of watching the New York Excelsior play. Otherwise, it's like, what's that? Oh, I guess Superman just wins again and doesn't die, does he? Brilliant. Yeah. See you next week. Like, what do you think of them now?
I think New York right now, has to, they're not still, no, I feel like we're still better at knowing what you should play. Like our team right now, I feel like we're in front of everybody in knowing what we should play, but I think New York are better in coordinating comms and just being overall better players right now. And I think their coaching staff is insanely good at realizing that what their players need in order to succeed, and that's what they've been doing for the last 4 stages, and it's been working pretty fucking well, to be honest. The only thing I don't understand about New York is on which basis do they do their, when they sub people in. They normally only sub Animo and Pine
and Janus.
And Janus sometimes, but I have no fucking idea why, ever, these switches happen. I do understand,
Pine is clear. Pine is clear when they do Pine.
No, it's not.
The animal one's weird, though.
Just because you don't understand it doesn't mean I don't understand it.
Okay. Why is it clear?
Because it's almost always dependent on maps, right? So
sure. Then, for example, why don't they play Pine on Horizon where they played Widow all the time anyway? On maps where they play Widow all exclusively, they still play Sabiolbi and Libero.
I can literally tell you why they don't do that on. It's because they run different attacks that don't have Widow on them. They run quad tank Moira attack. Libero plays Zarya on Horizon. They want that flexibility.
Oh, yeah, maybe. I can't remember correct. Yeah, true, maybe. But
okay,
most of the time,
I've
seen them not play Pine on maps where they never switch up Widow.
Well, I assume it's not going to. I assume nothing is. They have locked
keep cutting
in
out
first
every now and then,
place.
Monte.
Yeah.
What did you say there again? Say it again.
Oh, I said I assume that we're just going to see them not do anything, or nothing's going to make sense from this point.
Yeah,
because
true.
they've gotten first place. When they were playing the Dragons the other day, they were literally trying to play dive into the Dragons Brigitta, and they knew they were being countercomped, and they just did it anyway to style on them.
Yeah, they wanted to try. I think they wanted to practice dive and see if it's still good, right?
Yeah. So I think we're just going to see a lot of wacky shit from New York from now on. And they were playing, for example, Blizzard World, and Sabiolbi played Junkrat for the first time against Shanghai. The first time ever. Yeah. And the only reason they're doing this is because now, when you see Sabiolbi in a map for playoffs, you have to say, oh, he might play Junkrat. It's all mind games for them.
Right.
From here on out, it's you start playing all these weird heroes. You tell players to play heroes they're not even good at against worse, the bad teams, because then all the coaches of the good teams have to prep for them playing those heroes or playing those strategies, and it becomes very difficult.
It doesn't fucking matter what you play when you have Meko and Mana are in the front like this, and then Jonah is 1 versus 6 in the enemy team like this. It doesn't matter what your team plays. It's pretty funny.
There's the GIF. Taimou doing the Spider-Man. There you go. It's web shooters, fully loaded. Why didn't you ever give Zenyatta a go, Taimou?
I did. Actually, in the beta, when I was playing Mercy, I also was one of the only people who played Zen, but Zen, Mercy was so fucking broken back then. Even though Zen was actually broken too, but he had 150 HP. Like nobody played Zen, everybody played Lucia and Mercy. And I think like if people could theory craft and realize how broken Zen has been from the inception of the character,
Yes.
like I think most teams would have, like the meta would have evolved differently, where people would have understood that triple support would have always been so fucking overpowered, but
Sure.
it never was because nobody knew how to play this fucking game back then, right?
That is actually the same in every game, I have to tell you, though. Because actually, believe it or not, in CSGO, we actually had a gun that had been around for over, like, I think it was like 2 years before anyone realised that it was very OP in a certain set of circumstances. And nothing had changed. It wasn't like buffed or anything. Just no one had tried using it in that way. And it was only then that everyone was like, what the fuck? This was there the whole time? So... Right. Is it weird for you how good Jonak is then? Because obviously before Overwatch League, you know, he was just like, there was like rumors that, oh, this guy's so fucking skilled or whatever. It's kind of ridiculous. He's been like the best player pretty much the whole time of the Overwatch League.
He is a true rookie too. He never played in Apex, right? He was picked up by LW Blue and he was supposed to play in season 4. Then LW drops out of Apex for Overwatch League just to prepare. And now he is like a true rookie. So... And he's probably going to be the MVP of the league, almost certainly.
Most likely, yes. I think like Jonak, I've never seen him like when and before Overwatch League started. Like I would see him play ranked non-stop. He would play ranked ladder all the time. He would only play Zen. He would only solo queue, and he would most likely shit on your team if you didn't shit on him. Like, if you personally didn't go and fucking kill him, like, he would kill your whole team. It was so annoying. Like, he practiced a lot. I don't know how much he practices now. It seems like he's just chilling on ladder. Like, his Zen is on the level where he most likely doesn't need to play outside of scrims.
So what's it like for you, Agilities, to play against Jonak?
It's the hardest thing in the world, honestly. Like, playing Genji against Jonak Zen is impossible. Like, there's certain situations where you can make it work, obviously. Like when you have a damage boost in Mercy and you're trying to blade him, then in that situation, like it's a little easier. But if you're just like, if it's a 1v1 situation where I'm like against Jonak and I have a blade, even if I don't have a blade, like I'm most likely going to lose unless I get the combo and I have to like kind of play around that because there's not a lot of Zens that scare me as Genji because I'm pretty good at killing Zens, but Jonak's like, I think the only one that scares me. And you know, it's pretty weird to play against it.
It's because like you can't really pull the blade in front of him because you die if you do, right?
You literally die in the time you're playing with the blade.
Yeah, you need to kill him. You need to kill him without blading unless you have pocket.
Yeah, unless you're hiding too.
In a 1v1, unless you blade from LOS, like you're just gonna die.
Like the time it takes for Jonak to kill a Genji that's blading is literally the time it takes to pull out the sword, like while you're sheathing it or unsheathing it or whatever. Like that's when you die, and that's really scary to play against.
It's like the quick draw in the Wild West. Here's the thing,
Exactly.
You're safe as long as you don't go for the gun. But if you go for that gun, second you go for it, he's allowed to kill you. That's the rules.
You're dead.
The rules of the Wild West.
Pretty much.
Right, I think the only team we haven't really talked about is actually still a very good team. It's the Los Angeles Gladiators. We only briefly touched on them. So Gladiators have hit the ground running, looking pretty good. What do you make of them?
I think Glads, they definitely have been getting a lot better after they got Fissure. I think in this particular meta, they're very good because Shawfall has gotten very good at Widow, and who's their other DPS again? Fuck.
Hydration is the one that's been playing.
Hydration.
So they were playing with Silk Thread in week 1, but they've been basically just playing this past week.
Yeah, they've been doing good because like all like Genji, Brigitta, Pharah, Junkrat, they're all in okay places except Brigitta is still the number 1 pick. And if they can play that, if they can also play Brigitta, they'll become a very, very good team. I think right now we could contest, like last week we couldn't because they were simply just still better than we were. But now I think we could contest, we could make it a close series against Gladiators. But I think they're top 2 right now after New York. And then probably us currently. We never fucking know what's going to happen until the stage playoffs, right? So I'll just say that New York is the best, Gladiators second. I think their style will not work as well in the coming weeks. if they don't learn how to play Brigitte, so they'll probably fall down. We'll see.
I mean, they do have Bishu playing Brigitta on their.
Oh yeah, true. They have Bishu playing Brigitte. I almost forgot. But that's also like if they play Brigitte, they don't have a diva, which is a problem.
I think probably like Hydration was playing Brigitte a little bit as well, so I think they're trying to address that. And given how quickly Hydration can learn new heroes, I don't know if that's going to be a huge problem for them.
But we'll see. We'll see. Like, we don't know. Right now, they're definitely the second best team in the league. But until further matches, yeah.
Like, who do you think is the best of the Western teams?
The Western teams?
Just everyone who isn't all Korean.
I honestly thought Philly was going to be like insane this meta. After screwing them, like Philly was destroying us. Even like their B team was doing really good. But yeah, their A team, we had a couple scrims against them where we actually got tilted. We rarely get like super tilted in scrims, but they destroyed us a couple blocks, and yeah, it was pretty annoying to deal with them. So I thought they were going to be a lot better, but I mean, Dallas just beat them last night. So.
Philly is good. They have insane amount of skill in them, but they like I said earlier in the podcast, I said that they're so stuck in their ways. When they think something works, they just keep doing that shit over and over again until it stops working. And they're not a very technical team. They never have been. They're always relied on one niche. Like when they played with Fraggy, they would literally just Shadowbone and Carpe out there. They're ready to flank. Fraggy dives into die with full Matrix. He dies. Then a diva is full HP in front of your face, and you have a Tracer and Genji shitting on your backline, right? And that's how they used to play in stage 1 and 2, and a bit on the 3 too. And then they started having a bit of a more different style with EQO when EQO came in. And they still kind of did the same shit, but they had more hero picks. So they could flex into more heroes, but their playstyle was still almost exactly the same. So they would just like do this same shit over and over again. And because they're just better mechanically than the other teams except New York, they would shit on them. But now we counter-strat them, we won. I think other teams will too.
Yeah, I honestly thought like Sato. I don't know what you guys think about Sato, but I think he's like personally like really good at Winston, like especially after playing against them. So I thought that was gonna definitely help them a lot, and I think it has. But they just need more play time with them to get used to them and stuff, and then they'll be a lot better.
I think Sato is very good.
Yeah,
we're Hotba too, and because I think Sato and Hotba were playing on the B team all the time, so I would still put Poker over Hotba on Diva, but because Sato and Hotba has been playing together, I think that's why they're running this, and I feel like Sato is better than Fraggy and Monkey for sure. I mean, on Reinhardt, Fraggy probably is a lot better than Sato is. I don't think Sato's Reinhardt is very good, but his Monkey is very good. So I would still, if I was Philly, I would still play Fraggy and Poco.
Like all the maps or just Ren maps?
Most maps where Reinhardt is prevalent.
Yeah, it's true. It's a lot right now, so.
Oh, speaking of which, actually, speaking of Reinhardt, that reminds me of a baller story. I don't know if you saw this, Monte, but one of the people, that guy who, if you remember, is famous from Reddit, the guy Robin311, who does all the translation of people's streams and stuff. Mm-hmm. I follow him on Twitter as well, and he posted there that after the, which game was it they played? I think it was the Gladiators versus the Outlaws game. There was like a bit where on Dorado, they did like a switch to Reinhardt, and then there's a story here that's from Fisher. Your cam's gone off, by the way, Taimou. There's a story here from that's what Fisher was saying about this switch he did. Wait there a second. Has everyone gone?
I'm here.
No, sorry. I can only see one camera, so you were sat too still. Right? So when he did this switch, right? Like, obviously, there could be translation error here. So what I'm about to say probably isn't as funny as it should be to me. It's probably just a translation error. But it says here, it goes, this is from Fisher. It says It's what he wrote on Inven about the game. He says, "Third, I was the one who ordered the switch to Reinhardt at the last part of Dorado. Show4 hugged me afterwards because my order was insane. He actually literally said, 'Your order is insane.' Fourth, yes, I wrote this so I would get praised. It's hard to notice variables outside of the match. So first of all, how baller is it that Fisher himself is going on Inven, giving the details of like, it was actually me who did that fucking amazing call. But here's the thing, I wonder if it's like a translation error, because if he actually just meant like, I made the call, that sounds fine. But I like to imagine with his personality that it actually is like, I made the order. Shofar's like, your orders are insane, sir. It's like, yes, they are. Always follow my orders. Like, why does he say it like that? It sounds sick, doesn't it?
I love it.
I like the way he tells his order.
But the thing is, like, with
right? Your mic's gone up, Monte. You just cut out a second there. I think it's if you go really close to it.
You're fine. You're fine.
All right.
It's good now. It's back now. Yeah.
All right. I just love how like you can actually see because of Fisher's personality, you can actually imagine him saying that and it being true.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like Fisher, like he takes pride in what he does a lot, yes. And I think he backs it up also, which is admirable.
Yeah.
Yes. But here's the thing about Fisher, right, is obviously in every other team, they either want like a top-down system where the coaches plan things and then people have a job within. So that's sort of a bit like a democracy, But Fisher really is just like, no, we are going to have a full dictatorship where I run and I order everyone around. The good thing about dictatorship is like, there can be a lot of horrible things can happen. The whims of the dictator can make people have a bad, but you know what? The trains fucking run on time. People tend to get there at exactly 9:15 when you tell them you need them there at 9:15, and that's the good part. So, for good or for ill.
And here's a joke: you will get Thorin, but I guess we have to call him the Fisher King then.
Exactly, not bad, right? Underrated Terry Gilliam movie.
King Cut Emperor of
and reference to alchemical law.
There you go.
Speaking of which, Fisher's law. Fisher's alchemical law. Because he did take a bunch of fucking base material and turn it into something else, didn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's probably, speaking of Jonak, he's Fisher's one of the only
it's cutting out when you said it there. Say it again.
Oh, sorry. I said, speaking of Jonak, like Fisher is probably one of the other major candidates for MVP of the season, simply because of how much he has turned the Gladiators around from moving there. They went from like a low mid-tier team to a pretty good team overall, and he's the most important part of that equation.
Yeah, so the problem is though, like even though I agree, obviously you can't have one candidate. You've got to give other people. There's like no way he's going to win it though, is it? Like it'd be, if you lose that and you're Jonak, it's like, what am I supposed to do? Win every single game?
Like unless Gladiators somehow win the whole season, I would still put Jonak MVP by far.
I think most people would. Yes. I think most people would. We're just talking about other possible
candidates. Well, here's a question then. Who would be another person as well as these two players? So Jonak, Fisher, they're both pretty good calls. Who else?
If Birdring pops off for the rest of the stage and then wins the playoffs and absolutely dominates everybody, he would be potentially.
Carpe
is another one.
Carpe, Birdring, Fisher, Jonak.
There was another guy, we'll call him He Will Not Be Named, and not because he's a Korean player who boosted, but there was obviously a person who doesn't play the Overwatch League anymore who's pretty good.
Envy? Or Rascal?
It wasn't someone Korean, mate. You got lost on that part of the joke. I wasn't referring to I was referring to someone who is basically dead now, so he's sort of like a ghost, but when he used to play, it was a dream for his team. You see what I did there? You might enough Easter eggs there. We're still not naming who it is, though.
Does it ring a bell, Agilities?
Yeah.
I honestly have no idea who you guys are talking about.
No, exactly. Don't worry about it. That's all that needs to be said.